careers that they want. Okay, next slide. Okay, so the staff assisted services, this is the part that we're doing mainly right now. So they have a career agent dedicated to them. They create an individual employment plan. There's individual training account. The participants, once they enroll in the WIOA program and they have this support, they also have access to a myriad of supportive services. They can, depending on the bucket where they fall in, they can get up to $1,000 in supportive services while they're going to school. You know, whenever, if there's any partners here that work with schools, if we get any participants that comes in already enrolled in a school program, we can provide up to $1,000 in supportive services. So what we want is we want to eliminate any barriers that are in front of the participants, because we want them to succeed. We want them to succeed in school, at work, and anything they do, okay? So there is all those funds available for us to help people succeed. The on-the-job training is a wage reimbursement program that 50% of the wages get reimbursed to the employer. So this way, the employer has an incentive to hire somebody that might need a little more training. So it's a win-win. It's a win for the client that gets a foot in the door because of this monetary incentive. They get the training, and this is a fulfilling career that partnership probably would have never happened without that money exchange. Okay, next slide. Okay, so we also have another side of the house, which is business services. They are also working remotely, working really hard. So we have the recruitments and hiring, so the work they do with the employers. They create job fairs and job postings. All the job postings are now going through the Workforce Partnership through their portal. We also do a lot of email and to do outreach. But most of those jobs, you will find them now in the portal at the Workforce Partnership. We get a separate pile of money for those OJTs and for the customized trainings. So those are just groups of trainings that we get funded for, like a carpentry training, or there's some electrician cohorts, things like that. Okay, next slide. Okay, actually, you can skip this one, the on-the-job training. We talked about it a little bit already. Okay. So this is a program that right now the partnership is handling directly. The oh no, I'm talking about the wrong thing. Receiving training for an in-demand occupation. So we have a couple of tools that the partnership has created to find those in-demand occupations. In those in-demand occupations, we have received a pool of money to help people train for those positions for the future. Okay, so we can assist an individual with up to $5,000 in training when they fit within this in-demand occupations. And for that, there's a meeting with the career agent where we look over the list. If it's the right training for the goals that the individual has, we will be able to fund it. So it's one of the best things about the career centers. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, the Career Center, we also have veteran services. If anybody is a veteran and is in need of some help, please reach out to us at the center, because we have our veteran specialists. They were all veterans themselves, and they can assist you with the job search and connect you with different community resources as well. Next slide. One more. Okay, so we have all kinds of partners within the center. Okay, actually, I'll just keep talking now. You can stop wherever, it doesn't matter. I think the things that I need to say now are not in the slide. So we received some of the things that you guys are gonna get in the handouts that I sent earlier in the week. Is we have a couple of programs that are time sensitive, and we need your assistance in spreading the word. One is a UCII grant. The partnership and the state gave us till December 31st to spend the money. I'm hoping we're going to get, there we go, that's it, the UCII grant. Thank you. People can receive up to $800 in services. We've been paying people's rents, buying them computers, catching them up on their bills, paying car payments, SDG&E, all kinds of stuff. Anything that we can do to provide a little relief. The requirements, they have to be enrolled in WIOA. So if they contact us about this, we'll get them enrolled first. And most people that qualified for the UCI qualified to get enrolled in the program. So they need to be, right now, be affected by COVID in monetary way. So if they're receiving 50% or less of their usual wages, they'll be, slide into the program. They don't have to be receiving unemployment for this to, be activated for them. They just need to reach out to us. In the flyer, there's the contact information for my boss, Silvia Contreras, but they can also just reach out to us directly at the center, okay? So that's the UCII. That's like right now one of the best things that we have going on. There's a couple of other flyers. There's the one about how to become a member. Since now we're doing everything online, you go to the workforce.org. Perfect. Oh my God, you're good. So to become a member, they just have to follow 4 different steps on the workforce.org website. It guides them to create a CalJobs account. Then just kind of let us know that they're interested, and then a career agent reaches out to them. Usually the turnaround is within 1 to 2 days after they complete all their process. But the career agents have really been amazing transitioning to this virtual world, where they have, I feel like they're having even more meaningful connections with clients. And they're just really accessible, and, with everything online, it's wonderful. Okay, so there's that one. Next slide. We can probably talk about the ERI grant. I believe it's in there. So that's another grant we received this year. For that grant, the participant needs to be, this is it, the Employee Recovery Initiative. So the participant needs to be either receiving unemployment or be classified for us as a dislocated worker. So this is definitely for people that are very motivated to start working right away. Perfect for anybody that got laid off or furloughed. Well, the furloughs will go back, but for layoffs. They go through an intensive boot camp. It's a 2-week workshops. So they go through all the different workshops in a one-on-one setting. Well, as a group setting with the instructor. And then at the end, they transition to the business services department, where they get plugged into getting to an OJT. So what we want to do is kind of speed up the process, get them all the skills ready, make sure that they are ready for work, and move them into an OJT. So we have some great business partners that we've been able to place people in them. So this is a really good program as well. And on the flyer, there is Terrence's information where you can email, and we'll get you connected in it. More than anything, I just really want to make sure that you guys know we're still here. We are available. We are excited to help with the community right now. Actually, after this, I have a meeting about planning a community resource. I don't know if any of you participated in the little resource fair that we did. Oh, the Tech Hire for Chula Vista. Let me just go quickly in this. So before, Tech Hire was all through San Diego, and the funds got pretty much taken away. And now the only sector that has the Tech Hire is Chula Vista. So please help me distribute this through the Chula Vista Center. All the information of who to contact. This is directly with the Workforce Partnership, but it's such a good program that I wanted to get it out there. So we need to get our people in technology, right? The jobs of the future. And this is just a great opportunity with Tech Hire. More than anything, thank you so much for everything you guys do. This community is inspiring, and we are looking forward to helping your participants. We are kind of the well is drying up a little bit of referrals, and I know there's a lot of people out there that need our help. We just haven't been able to reach them. So if you guys can spread the word in your corners of the, I was going to say island, we're not an island, the corners of the area, just let people know that we're here and we're dying to help them. That's all I have for you today. Thank you so much for your time. I don't know how much time I spent. Hopefully it was little.
We have a couple of minutes in case we
any questions? Yeah.
Yes, please. The floor is
Please
yours.
ask away. Anybody. I'm putting my direct email here. If you have any referrals that you want us to reach out to them, Larry, just send me an email with the name and number of the person and we can do the outreach. Okay? It's super simple. But any questions about any of the programs, about how to contact us?
Just a reminder that because we're doing this in Teams, all the chat comments and information, the Teams kind of saves it. It's in your desktop or mobile application. So it's also a quick resource back to all the information listed. And of course, then all these handouts and the slides, Debbie will prepare an electronic file for downloading. That may take us about 24 hours to upload it on our web page. So you can have those flyers as PDFs and distribute as need be.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. So Anthony, that should solve that. But if you want me to send you something directly right away, just give me your email and I can do that. But yeah, so just, the little plug-in for you guys to remember us and know that we're here and we're dying to help all your participants.
Thank you so much,
No,
Andrea,
thank you
for seeing that the information and being one of those first partners to say, hey, I want to be in your next call. That energy is always needed and revitalizing the collaborative, just as Tanisha earlier with the 211, with the reconnection from earlier in this year. And next year, we'll see how everything progresses and all the updates that are needed for all these programs. We'll be glad to share with our members. Thank you again.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yes, so while David changes the setup, let's see. I'm just checking that, yes, Crystal is here from SANDAG, so great on time. And we have here a couple of elements there regarding the video and the questionnaire, and it's really important. I want to preface this presentation from Crystal
Y bueno,
Ayala. Hola, Crystal, are you here?
buen día, ¿cómo estás?
I wanted to preface that.
Ay, muy bien, gracias a Dios. Aquí estoy trabajando y la chachis anda en la guardería, porque si no, no me deja trabajar.
So here with here the presentations, the main language will be English, and we do have the opportunity to, if you can share your screen, so David can channel the slides. You didn't send slides, right? It was just.
I have a video, and I do have like 2-3 slides that just provide more resources for everyone to go visit the website. So I can share that after the fact with you.
Yes, please do so David can upload that in our website. So thank you for joining us today, Crystal, and it's a great opportunity. And I wanted to preface this presentation with an emphasis on that we are being contacted to provide feedback. So this is an important way for us to bring up and serve to amplify what we're getting and the input from our families that we serve, the communities that we serve, to be integrated into regional efforts. So then don't say, oh, we were never asked before, because indeed there are several ways that you can contribute to this effort. Thank you, Crystal. Take it away.
Okay, great. I'm going to share my screen and then I'll go ahead and share the video. But let me see if this is working. I have a million windows open as usual. So
yes, we see it. We see
give me a minute.
2021 regional plan.
All right, can you guys see that okay? I want to make sure that you're only seeing the PowerPoint and not my little screen here on the side.
We still see the whole lot, like the sidebar with all the slides and your notes.
It's not in presentation mode.
It's not in presentation mode? That's weird. Well, let's see.
I know we're still figuring it out, Teams. I just found out that as a host, we cannot record. We have to make parallel arrangements for recording the session. I mean, this is on the go. You guys have no idea. I have 3 people on standby with my text. Getting all this happening for you guys as we get more proficient in Teams as well. Oh,
is that better or is that still the same?
Yes.
Can you guys still see the notes bar?
I think that we need to circumscribe that, okay, Krista? We cannot afford the 64 slides, so you will kind of have to focus, okay?
Yeah, no. I've got a lot of slides that are hidden here. Can you see the slideshow now, or do you still see the notes here on the side?
Yeah, there's still notes on the side.
Oh, gosh. Okay, let me just forgo presenter view. I'm just going to do this. Okay. So, hi everyone, good morning. I'm Crystal Ayala. I'm a regional planner with our mobility and innovation team. I'm really excited to be here. I've been part of the team that's been working on this new regional vision for the San Diego region. I work at SANDAG. We wear a few different hats, so I just want to spend a few minutes describing who we are, what we do, and kind of what our role is, just to set the stage for, what we'll be sharing with you later today. So we are the regional planning agency. We're also referred to as the Metropolitan Planning Organization, the Transportation Planning Agency. And really what all of that means is that we are in charge and tasked with leading all of the long-range transportation planning efforts in the San Diego region. And so one of the more important things that we do at SANDAG is every 4 years is to develop a long-range transportation plan. And so this long-range transportation plan sort of serves as a blueprint for future transportation investments in the region, whether those be transit investments, improvements to our roadways, and how we can begin to think about the connection between where we live and land uses and what our communities, the built environment in our communities and transportation. And so we have a few reasons why we do that. We have state mandates that require us to develop this long-range transportation plan. But there's been so much change in the past 4 or 5 years around transportation. New technologies, companies like Uber and Lyft and scooters that just totally changed how people move around, and expectations about how long that takes, right? This whole idea of on-demand services, wanting to be able to hail a ride as quickly as possible and get going has really changed the expectations of the user experience and the transportation experience. So we decided to take a completely new look with this regional transportation plan and take a data-informed approach to integrate new technologies, look at the best available data to develop a long-range transportation plan that integrated and leveraged all of these new technologies and innovations, and was also meeting our climate and state mandates, ensuring that we are addressing social equity up front, providing access in so many ways, not just mobility, but access to opportunities and jobs, and so forth. So the long-range transportation plan has, a lot of goals and different objectives. So I just kind of wanted to set this stage here before I share a video. Next, I'm just gonna pull up a really quick video. It's our planning director, Colleen Clemenson. If any of you have had the pleasure of meeting her, she provides a really quick and great overview of how what the new regional vision looks like, and I'll take a few minutes after that just talking about how we are going to take this regional vision, create an actual plan with projects and timeline and a funding strategy, how we intend to fund and implement these different projects. And then I also just want to talk about some of the related planning efforts that we've been working with the Chula Vista Community Collaborative, and would love to get some feedback and make sure that those efforts are on your radar as well. So I'm going to stop sharing. David, did you want to share the video? Or did you want me to do that? I have it ready to go.
You can go ahead and do it.
Okay,
Excellent.
perfect. Hide this. And we have an English version available, and we also have a Spanish version available if that I'm happy to share that after the fact, and if you want to share it with some of your community members as well in Spanish. So sorry, let me just make sure I'm doing this correctly. All right. I'm going to go ahead.
I'm Colleen Clemenson, Planning Director for the San Diego Association of Governments. Today I want to show you the vision for SANDAG's 2021 Regional Transportation Plan, a vision for a transportation system that's faster, fairer, and cleaner. One of the most important things SANDAG does is develop a regional transportation plan, a long-term blueprint for how we will grow and how we will get around. We update this plan every 4 years to account for factors like population growth, economic trends, new laws, and evolving technologies. We took a different approach this time, making this one of our most transformational updates ever.
I'm going to pause here. Are you able to see the recording okay?
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
Historically, SANDAG planned to improve traffic by widening roadways where we have bottlenecks and adding transit in the same corridors, hoping people will use it. Now we have much better data about where people are coming and going, and new technologies have widely expanded our transportation options. Laws about air quality and protecting our environment have been strengthened, and the need to address social inequities has become urgent. And technology has matured to a point where we can dramatically improve what we have and realistically plan for new ways of getting around. Clearly, we must also account for the COVID-19 pandemic and all the unknowns it has created. At the same time, we must recognize the fundamental things that will remain the same. Our major residential areas, schools, universities, and job centers aren't going anywhere. 90% of what is here now will be here in the foreseeable future. And when the pandemic passes, we will have traffic congestion again. We are already seeing this, even though a good percentage of people are telecommuting. We need to be thinking for the long term, and we will need this vision. Our planning team spent the last 15 months pouring through data, reviewing mountains of public input, and researching the latest transportation innovations. What we have developed is a vision for a transportation system that's faster, fair, and cleaner. Faster by reducing traffic congestion and speeding up transit, connecting our communities. Fair by investing in a system that increases affordable transportation choices. And cleaner by ensuring we meet state and federal environmental standards. Today, our roadways are inefficient. Multiple studies have shown that adding lanes actually increases traffic. Within a matter of months, traffic jams return. We need to address the inequality in the transportation system as it relates to low-income, minority and senior populations, and ensure that all of our residents have equal access to things like high-quality jobs, education, and healthcare. There are many legislative mandates that must be met. State and federal laws call for reducing greenhouse gas emissions and reducing air pollution. New targets set by the state require the San Diego region to reduce the number of miles traveled per person. These laws require SANDAG to meet the targets through transportation and land use solutions. By getting people to walk, bike, share rides in carpools, van pools, on transit, and making shorter trips. The newest state law, Senate Bill 743, requires that any transportation project that increases vehicle miles traveled, such as roadway widenings, must mitigate for that increase with a project that does not increase vehicle miles traveled, such as public transit, walking, and biking. we have some big challenges and some big goals. How do we get the job done? With the 5 big moves: flexible fleets, mobility hubs, transit leap, complete corridors, and the next operating system. 5 interreliant strategies that, when linked together, can link our transportation system in a way never done before. Together, they provide a new and powerful way of addressing the region's transportation problems that we've struggled with for decades. Transit rarely gets us within walking distance of where we want to go. We change that using the 5 big moves. Flexible fleets solve that problem by providing connections that extend the reach of transit, vastly increasing the number of people who could use transit as a viable commuting option. Mobility hubs connect communities across the region so that people will have an alternative to having to own a car. And for transit to be competitive with the automobile, it needs to be fast. This is what we call transit leap: commuter rail, light rail, and the next gen rapid, all providing convenient, safe, affordable transportation. Complete corridors allow us to use technology to organize and manage our corridors and to streamline traffic in a more manageable way and provide equitable access to meeting our daily needs. The glue that really holds these strategies together is technology. We call it the Next OS. It allows us to optimize the overall system by wirelessly connecting vehicles, coordinating traffic signals, and providing real-time information for our travelers. This technology was not as mature a decade ago, but technology will dominate the future of transportation. Together, the 5 big moves are 5 interdependent strategies that give us a real shot at solving our transportation problems. That is what is so brilliant about this vision. The vision for the 2021 regional plan is a long-term investment in the region's future, developed through data, analysis, and input from you. The well-being of our region, this wonderful place we call home, depends on us to make meaningful changes today.
Okay, well, that's always a great video, and I love playing that because it provides, a lot of important background information on why we're doing this, why we have to do it every 4 years, and some of the mandates we have to meet, as well as just a big picture look at what this new vision would entail and what that would look like in some of our communities. So you actually saw a few of the conceptual designs for San Ysidro, Sereno Valley, El Cajon, North Park that we developed through this effort. And those are just really intended to help illustrate what some of the different strategies and investments could look like in our communities, and what helps kind of bridge this abstract long-range plan into something tangible that we can almost feel and imagine what that might look like in our communities. So I just want to spend some time here.
Crystal, and we have 5 more minutes.
Okay, perfect. Just want to spend some time here talking about the 5 big moves and the importance of, the partnerships with different stakeholders that will be so important to ensuring that the 5 big moves are implemented and that they're successful, right? And a lot of these strategies, aren't really new. Flexible fleets have long been here. Operating things like Uber and Lyft are new, but we've had services like ride sharing for a long time. People have been carpooling and vanpooling for decades. And things around our transit leap system. We have existing transit services today, and the transit leap strategies is looking at ways we can improve and enhance existing transit services to make sure that they are operating even faster and safer and accessible. And then, with the mobility hub concept, it's really about ensuring that the broader communities within our region are also thinking about the so important infrastructure and amenities that help make that user experience so much more comfortable and makes that travel experience seamless for the user. And, SANDAG is the regional planning agency. So we do the long range planning. We also help provide the funding, working with our federal and state partners. And in some cases, we operate some of these services. But in a lot of cases, we also work with our cities and with our transit agencies to, then plan, design, and operate some of these services. So while we're planning some of these longer transit routes and lines, our transit partners, MTS and NCTD, are doing the day-to-day operations and short-term planning while we work on this long-range planning and vision. And so Colleen in the video talked about the importance of this new vision and how it improves aim for communities of concern. So what you see on the screen here are our minority, low income, and senior populations, and there's illustrated here to just show the concentration. And with this new vision, thinking about how we can improve our existing roadway systems, our transit systems, and with the mobility hub concept, you see that there's a lot of overlap with those communities of concern, and we really want to make sure that this regional vision is addressing social equity at the forefront, and that this network is meeting the needs of all of these different community members. So in terms of we've been doing a lot of the planning and data right now as we speak. So we are actually moving into modeling and environmental analysis of this regional plan. And in the spring, we intend to release that draft plan, and that draft plan will include lists of projects and the phasing and the timeline. And I mentioned the funding strategy as well that will accompany how we intend to fund and implement all of these different projects and investments. And the intent is to have this new regional plan adopted next fall so that we can readily hit the ground running and begin on some of the other advanced planning and future implementation work that will take place after the plan is adopted in partnership with our cities, transit agencies, and some of our other stakeholder partners. Which brings me to our related planning efforts slide. I wanted to acknowledge the fact that Chula Vista Community Collaborative has long been a member of the community-based organization working group at SANDAG, and has been a really important stakeholder in not only the regional plan and providing feedback on the regional plan and helping us extend the outreach to the community, but they've also been a stakeholder in a few projects. So we've received a Caltrans planning grant in partnership with the City of Chula Vista to develop a concept of operations for a mobility hub in the Western Chula Vista area. And a lot of work has sort of been happening in the background, and I know the Chula Vista Community Collaborative has participated in some of those stakeholder meetings. But this concept of operations is so important because it helps us take this long-range planning work and help us really pivot towards what needs to happen in the short term so we can begin to implement some of these pilots and projects. And so this concept of operations will include some operational scenarios and use cases for how we can integrate, say, smart intersection technology within Western Chula Vista, or how we can use on-demand services to help meet the needs of the different community members that live in Western Chula Vista, particularly with a focus on the senior population in that area. And then the last item I wanted to acknowledge was the community mobility needs assessment that we kicked off a few months ago with our CBO working group. This mobility needs assessment, we're really hoping will accomplish a few things. One, help us really understand on the ground feedback from the community on what their user experience is like and what are some of the barriers to adopting some of the 5 big move concepts or technologies. Do people have access to smartphones? Internet is such an important part of the technology that serves as the backbone for a lot of this vision work. And so the needs assessment will help us understand what those opportunities and challenges are so that we can begin to search for grant opportunities with our CBO partners to help implement some of these new pilots and projects that could address some of these concerns in the short term while we're, doing this longer range planning effort as part of the regional plan. So we do have that survey available in English and Spanish. It is linked here in this PowerPoint, and I will share that with you all after the fact, but I know Brendaly and Azucena have shared that as well. So if you haven't already taken it or have not shared it with your community members, definitely encourage you to just share it via newsletters, distribution list. We'd really like to get the word out and ensure that we're capturing the needs of the South Bay community residents.
Excellent. I think that's all the time we have today.
Sure.
And we keep the invite on for an update on all this in next year, especially about what you find out from those surveys, the community viewpoints that are being shared both in English and in Spanish, and that will be shared after the dissemination efforts that our partners will hopefully pursue right after this call. Thank you, Crystal, and we look forward to hear more of this next year on updates.
Yeah, thank you. If you have any questions, Brendaly, maybe you can share my contact information, and people who want to learn more or have questions can contact me directly.
Oh, certainly. And while we make the shift for the next presenter, if you can just type in the chat, because it does get recorded on the chat and people have access immediate to that, along with the materials we'll upload on our website later. So thank you for that. And now we are going to stop the sharing of the screen, and David, we are getting ready for our last presentation. I know that we are closer to the 10:30, but I have the call from 9 to 11 just to accommodate in case like this, more presentations every so often. And the topic at hand that everybody's taking interest, as it should be, is the COVID vaccine. We were approached by the university and trying to disseminate information and educate more about this topic. Do we have Marvin on the line?
Hey, good morning. I'm here.
Excellent. Thank you. So nice to see you again.
Yes,
and
you too.
You have the slides for us?
Yeah. So Dave, if you want to, there's actually a lot of transitions in the slide. So it's not just like next slide. Is that going to be troublesome?
No, it's all good. I'm here.
Okay. All right. Well, so I know that we're running out of time, so I'll try to get through this as quickly as possible. But, first, to introduce myself, my name is Marvin Hanashiro.
10:30. Feel free to go beyond the 10:30 mark, as this topic is very important. And for those that can later join and look at the recording, it's good that we have all the information out. Thank you.
All right, great. So first of all, I want to say, Brendaly, thank you very much for inviting me to come today and speak to the group. So I really appreciate being here. My name is Marvin Hanashiro, and I am the Community Outreach Coordinator for the UC San Diego Antiviral Research Center. The AVRC for short has been around since the early 80s, conducting clinical research when it comes to HIV and other infectious diseases. So of course, during the COVID pandemic, we have really repurposed a lot of our efforts to address therapeutics, so treatment studies, as well as vaccine studies on COVID-19. I will say that we're not the only site in San Diego conducting vaccine trials, but I'm only going to focus on the efforts that we're doing and a couple of the studies that we're conducting and how we're doing our education, community outreach and education. So next slide, please. Great. So I'm sure if everyone's been keeping up with the news, a lot of this information may be a little bit of review, but I wanted to give some background. So the national COVID-19 vaccine response is called Operation Warp Speed, and it is a partnership of the Department of Health and Human Services and the Department of Defense to accelerate the development, manufacturing, and distribution of COVID-19 vaccines, therapeutics, aka treatments, as well as diagnostics. Keep going, please. And so as a functional subunit of Operation Warp Speed, joined the COVID-19 Prevention Network. And then so our mission, or the mission of the CoVPN for short, is to conduct phase 3 efficacy trials for COVID-19 vaccines and monoclonal antibodies. Keep going, please. And one thing I wanted to stress is that the warp speed does not equal skip steps. And so I understand that safety is of paramount concern to make sure that we are, that all the vaccines being developed and that will be distributed are always following monitoring safety to make sure that it's safe enough to give to the general public. Next slide, please. So I wanted to mention, I did mention that the studies are all in phase 3 trials. So basically what it means is they've already gone through laboratory studies, animal studies, as well as phase 1 and phase 2. So the phase 1 trials, what happens is, they generally just go ahead and study a small group of volunteers, about 20 to 100, to even see if the vaccine is safe. And they look at the dosing schedules to see what amount of the vaccine and dosage is safe enough to give to people. Then they move on to phase 2 to start to see whether or not there's any immune response happening in people. And so now we're in phase 3. So we want to see whether or not these vaccines either prevent infections or they reduce severity of COVID-19 illness in people. So this is when we're doing thousands of volunteers, and safety is monitored through all phases. Next slide, please. So here's a snapshot on the vaccine production process. So normally vaccines can take anywhere from 8 to 15 years to produce and distribute. But the target for these vaccines, for COVID-19 vaccines, is 12 to 18 months. And they're actually a little bit ahead of schedule, which is great for, to address the pandemic. So as I mentioned, the steps usually go through to basic lab research. Then they go on to preclinical preparations. We're currently still doing clinical trials, which is number 3. And you've probably heard in the news that companies like Moderna and Pfizer are applying for emergency use authorizations to get approved to start distributing their vaccines next month in early January. And then there's also manufacturing and distribution plants that need to come into the play. So the way that they're doing this is a lot of these steps are being overlapped. That's how they're accelerating the process and the distribution. So for example, I mentioned, we're still doing clinical trials. There are going to be other companies that are going to enroll clinical trials as well over the next several months. And they're doing approvals now. And a lot of these companies, too, have already produced millions of these vaccine doses in the hope that their vaccine was shown to be effective. That way, they were prepared to start going ahead and doing distribution if their vaccine was approved by the FDA. Go ahead, next slide. Keep going, great. So as I mentioned, for the vaccine trials, the primary focus is to see whether or not the vaccines are safe to give to people and if they can reduce the severity and frequency of illness, of COVID-19 illness. Next slide, please. So I'm going to focus on two vaccine candidates that we're conducting. I mentioned that Moderna and Pfizer have already completed their studies and are applying for their emergency use authorization through the FDA. But the AstraZeneca and Janssen are 2 other pharmaceutical companies that are still conducting these trials, and we're doing them here in San Diego. So as I mentioned, they're all phase 3 trials. They're randomized, double-blinded, and placebo-controlled. What that means is you do not know what everyone that joins the study is randomized to either receiving the actual study vaccine or a placebo, which is saline or saltwater solution. And it's double-blinded, which means neither the participant or the study staff know what you receive. So the Janssen trial is they just reduced it now, but they're now looking at enrolling about 40,000 people nationally, and they're getting close nationally to meeting that number. How does this vaccine work? It's based on a weakened version of a common cold virus. So they use an adenovirus to introduce what's called the spike protein. So the image on the top right is what the COVID-19 basic image of what the COVID-19 virus looks like. And so all of these vaccines are using the spike, introducing a piece of the virus. So it's not a live virus. It's a piece of the virus called the spike protein to teach your body to produce the antibodies needed to fight the virus. So as I mentioned, it says here, presents bits of genetic material copied from the spike protein to teach your body to recognize the virus and fight against it. One thing I want to mention is that with the virus or the vaccine spike protein, no one can get COVID-19 from the vaccine itself because it does not present a whole virus for your body to fight. It only presents a bit of the genetic material. So I equate it to like riding like a bicycle. So basically, if you have a bicycle and you break it down into its parts, like the handlebars, the gears, the tires, if you only have one piece of the bicycle, you can't ride a bike. So it's the same thing with the virus, the vaccines. They introduce a bit of the virus so your body can learn how to fight against it, but it's not the whole virus itself. So one of the biggest things about this specific vaccine, Janssen, it is one single injection, which can be attractive to people because some of the other vaccine candidates have 2 doses that have to be done in 4 weeks apart. But this one is a 1-to-1 randomization, which means that 50% of the people will get the study vaccine and the other half will get a placebo. Next slide, please. So the AstraZeneca trial is very similar. They're also looking at enrolling about 30,000 people nationally. It also uses an adenovirus as far as how it's based on the weakened version of the adenovirus. It also uses a spike protein bit to teach your body to fight against the virus. However, the difference between this one is this vaccine is given in 2 injections, 4 weeks apart. So, that can be sometimes troublesome for some people to make sure that you get everyone back in again because you need to get both doses or both injections for it to be fully effective. And this has a 2-to-1 randomization ratio, though, however, meaning there's a better chance that people will get the actual study vaccine versus a placebo. So about 2/3 of the people that will get the study vaccine and about 1/3 get the placebo in this vaccine trial. Next slide, please. So as far as eligibility, overall, most of the studies follow this, all of the vaccine studies. Anyone over the age of 18 years of age can participate. You can be healthy or have medically stable underlying health conditions. So as long, if you have things like high blood pressure, diabetes, as long as you're on medication and they're medically stable conditions, you would be eligible. And of course, the trials really want to make sure that the people that are affected by COVID-19 the most may participate and may be able to benefit from finding an effective vaccine. So we're really trying to enroll people that have greater chance of exposure at their job, who live or work in elder care facilities, work in jails or prisons, and from racial and ethnic groups that have been impacted in greater numbers by the epidemic, such as African Americans, Asian Pacific Americans, Latinos, and American Indians. Some of the exclusions, however, is that if you've had past COVID-19 infection, you cannot participate in the AstraZeneca trial, but Janssen does allow people with past infection to participate. If you have a weakened immune system, that will also be an exclusion, but that does not apply to people with well-controlled HIV. And if you're pregnant or breastfeeding, at the time of enrollment, you cannot enroll. Next slide, please. I did see some questions in the chat briefly about side effects. So one thing I do want to mention is that all the side effects, the majority of people that have shown side effects have been mild to moderate, and most of them have been what's expected of most vaccines. So headache, nausea, sometimes GI issues, and pain at the injection site. Now, there have definitely been reported more serious adverse events, and those things are definitely looked at throughout the course of the trials. So you may have seen in the news that when there were serious adverse events, all of the trials had pauses, and that's what they do. Whenever there is something serious, then the independent safety data monitoring boards pause the studies. They make sure that they look at all of the information and decide whether or not they believe it's safe enough to continue. And so one thing to also note is that are common, and we expect those to happen. No drug is without side effects, and so there are going to be times that people do have side effects that are more serious, and that, like I said, that is to be expected. But if those serious side effects happen at a rate that are uncovered, and they happen in great numbers, then that's when the data monitoring boards may decide that these vaccines aren't safe enough to continue. But so far, as you may have seen, like Pfizer, Moderna, they've had really great reports on the short-term side effects. And they've also shown over 90% effectiveness at least preventing serious illness in people with COVID-19. So I think that's really reassuring to see that the vaccines thus far, with the information we know so far, are good. Next slide, please. So I wanted to focus a little bit now just on what we're doing locally. So as far as our research site independently, we really have been just trying to focus on twofold. One, the geographic areas of San Diego that have been hardest hit by COVID-19. So this is a slide from the county. And if you, David, just next button, please. I wanted to highlight the fact that the three of the cities that have the highest rates and been the greatest impact on COVID-19 are Chula Vista, Imperial Beach, and National City, also including El Cajon. But these three cities in the South Bay have been the hardest hit. So we've really been just trying to do a lot of community education and outreach to organizations, elected officials, collaborators like this, in order to make sure that people are aware of what's happening, why we're doing this, and how they can access a vaccine if they want to participate. And so next slide, please. So what we've done is, in order to reduce some of the barriers to access, we've decided to partner with local organizations in some of the cities that have been hardest hit. So in the map here, the green triangles where our research center is located in Hillcrest. But in order to work with Chula Vista, we've actually partnered with the MAC project, and we're using their parking lot at the MAC Community Charter School to bring our vaccine, the AstraZeneca trial, to their site using a bus that we've leased from the San Diego Blood Bank, and we've retrofitted and revamped it. And there's an example of what the bus looks like there. We also created a mobile clinic in Imperial Beach at the IB Neighborhood Center. And even though we weren't able to find a site in El Cajon, which actually has a high rate of COVID-19 itself, we are working with the city of La Mesa and using one of their parking lots to bring a mobile clinic there. And then we've also partnered with the city of National City to have a semi-permanent site with our Janssen trial, and that's with the yellow dot there. So you can see what we're trying to do is create better access to people that are interested in participating in the trials. Next slide, please. So I mentioned our outreach too is twofold. Not only are we reaching out to geographic regions, but we're also taking into consideration the fact that we know COVID-19 is impacting communities of color disproportionately compared to their white counterparts. So next button, please. I wanted to highlight the fact that in San Diego County, as you can see here, Hispanic and Latino population, as well as Native Hawaiian and Pacific Islanders, have disproportionate rates of COVID-19. And so we have definitely tried to work with lots of different groups in order to provide more information as far as making sure that they have this information for their communities and residents as well. And so this is why we think it's very important to make sure that communities of color are participating in the trials so that they are represented, since they actually are getting some of the, they're representing some of the largest numbers of COVID-19 in San Diego. Next slide, please. Another thing too that's really, I think, alarming is the fact that communities of color compared to their white counterparts have disproportionate rates of hospitalizations and deaths. So you can see from this slide here that was from the CDC that, for example, Black and African American non-Hispanic persons have 4.7 times the hospitalizations and 2.1 times the number of deaths compared to their white counterparts when it comes to COVID-19. With Hispanic and Latinos also having higher numbers, with 2.8 times the number of race cases, 4.6 times the number of hospitalizations, and 1.1 times the number of deaths. So this just gives you an example of that COVID-19 is affecting communities of color greater and I think, much worse than some of their white counterparts. Next slide, please. So what are some of the other things we're doing to optimize access to underrepresented populations is we do have all of our materials in Spanish. We also have most of our study staff also speak Spanish as well, and all the informed consents are in Spanish and English. I mentioned geographic barriers, so we decided to create mobile sites in the South Bay and La Mesa. And, we understand there's this long-standing mistrust in research and medicine. And so we're just doing as much as we can to provide community education, as well as making sure that the informed consent process is thorough. So that means that when a person decides to join a study, if you've never done research before, they are given a consent form, and we go through the consent form thoroughly to make sure that people are aware of the pros and cons or risks and benefits of participation, so that there's transparency and people have all the information that they need and are comfortable enough participating before they do so. Also, participation in trials is entirely voluntary, so you can refuse or stop at any time. Next slide, please. So here's an example of our site, covidvaccinesd.com. Next slide, please. And I mentioned we have partners with the MAC project, the City of National City. We also work with other health systems like Family Health Centers of San Diego and San Ysidro Health. Next slide, please. And then here's just a breakdown real quickly of our enrollments thus far. So what we're doing our best, research enrollment should be representative of the local community. So we're trying to mimic and replicate as best as we can the breakdown of race ethnicity in San Diego County. So the numbers on the percentage of San Diego County I got from the 2019 SANDAG population estimates. So we're doing our best to make sure that we match the amount of the breakdown of race ethnicity in our study in comparison to how it reflects in real life in San Diego County. One thing too that people always ask about, why are we prioritizing communities of color? Not only is it because of the disparities that we're seeing when it comes to how it affects Hispanic Latinos, as well as Native Hawaiians and Asian Americans in San Diego, but also, we don't know necessarily, unless we do trials, to make sure that the vaccines are safe and effective in every group, not only when in regard to race and ethnicity, but also with age and other factors too. Maybe people with certain underlying health conditions may not do as well with certain vaccines. That's another reason why there's so many of these vaccine candidates being done. There's going to be other companies like Sanofi and Novavax that are coming out in December and January, because we also know that not one vaccine candidate or trial will be able to, company I should say, will be able to vaccinate the world. So we're finding that we're going to see that we're probably going to need multiple of these vaccines available to make sure that everyone that wants to get a vaccine can get it. Next slide, please. So lastly, I want to mention that, equitable vaccine distribution is happening now, and a plan to make sure that underserved communities that we're asking to participate in the trials are not later left behind. And so there is a plan. So next slide, please. So the county, so here is an example of a plan that people are using currently as the county as well. So when the emergency use authorizations are approved, which will be soon, there is a phased approach that people can use in order, or that they're going to implement for people to get access to the vaccine. So one thing I do want to say is, there's only going to be a limited amount of vaccines available in the beginning. And so the phased approach is that as far as I remember, when I talked to the county about a week ago, we're getting about 28,000 doses from Pfizer locally. And so that's going to go first to high-risk workers in healthcare facilities and first responders, so people that are treating COVID-19 patients. And then they're also going to be given to residents of nursing homes. And then they're also, as a phase 1C, they're going to be looking at people of all ages with underlying conditions that put them at significantly higher risk of COVID-19 illness. One thing I was alarmed by or learned was that about 70% of San Diego fits under people that have an underlying health condition that could put them at risk of COVID-19. So that's a lot of people that falls under 1C or is in the phase 1. So it's going to be quite a while. The county is going to come up with a plan to decide how do they stratify who gets the vaccine, who gets access to the vaccine first under those conditions. So, but the general thought is that the general public is not going to be able to get access to the vaccine until late spring, early summer. So that's why sometimes the trials are a good access point if people want a chance of getting a vaccine sooner. Next slide, please. And that's it. So My final thoughts are, we continue to want to provide these education opportunities. If so, how do we engage your community? If that means, providing this talk to your staff, to your community members. If you're interested in participating in the trials, we have links to the vaccines to our study site at covidvaccinesd.com. We also have the link in Spanish, which is vacunacovidsd.com. And I mentioned just promoting more community education by inviting us to speak to your team or organization. So thank you very much, everyone, for taking the time to listen. And now I can answer any questions.
Thank you, Marvin. I know that some of the questions in the chat log, you have addressed them, such as the side effects. And also there a question about where else can we find out more about side effects as they progress. Maybe at the FDA site, any other site that you can recommend us.
Yeah, so I can put in the link. Now, the Coronavirus Prevention Network does have a national site, which has a lot more information about all of the trials. And so that is under, let me type it in. That site is coronaviruspreventionnetwork.org. I did see something just now or a little bit ago about long-term side effects. So that's a great question. And to be honest with you, we don't know what the long-term side effects are just yet, because that's what we're looking at. And so we do have a large amount of data on what the short-term side effects are, which generally are mild and safe, but we don't know what the long-term side effects. So I would have to say that it could be a potential risk, but that's why clinical trials overall are important to conduct. Because if people are joining the trials and we're able to follow them and monitor them over years, then we will learn about what those long-term side effects, if any, are. So.
Thank you. That's an important raising those points, because as we have noted the novelty of all this, but still trying to put all the safeguards in place as much as we can. And I really thank you, Marvin, for taking the time and also for providing this slide. So we are going to put that as a PDF with all the links live there on that PDF document, and David will upload as part of our materials on the website. And also thank you for the links on the chat. We will continue the conversation on vaccines, and hopefully earlier next year you can give us an update on how is it going and what else is needed, and especially with the targeted populations that we are aiming to get involved in clinical trials research, not only for COVID, for in general. The minority are usually underserved and underrepresented in these clinical trials. And we do have to play our part in educating ourselves, educating others, and keeping up with the latest information. Thank you, Marvin.
Yes. Thank you, Brendaly.
And thank you all for those who stayed. I have one final announcement, so we can put up the flyer, just keeping with the clinical aspect of the topic. San Ysidro Health shared with us the opening of an urgent care facility, opening later in the year, December 28 coming up, with the hours of operation right there, no appointments needed. We will share this flyer that the member of our steering committee, Alejandra Perez, shared with us from San Ysidro Health, also for your convenience in our call materials. We have a few minutes left for the 9 to 11 version of the call today. I want to open up for any more announcements. I saw on the chat log that several of you earlier shared information about your services and programs. That's fantastic. It's always good to have the links on the chat log and the phone number, all that detailed there. Any other announcements probably to the meeting adjourned? We have a hand raised, Marco.
Yes. Hi, everybody. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Wonderful. Hi, everyone. It's me again. I just wanted to announce to everyone that there was a recent court decision about DACA that happened this last weekend. So as of this moment, people can go ahead and apply for DACA once again. So people who have never had it before, they can go ahead and apply for it. And just very briefly, the most basic requirements for that are that people were under age 31 as of June 15, 2012, and that they came to the United States before reaching their 16th birthday. They have continuously been here in the U.S. since June 15, 2007, and that they had no lawful status on June 15, 2012. So the same guidelines apply as back in 2017. And I'm going to include a flyer here a little bit later, but for now, I'm going to include the registration link for anyone that wants to go ahead and apply for the DACA for the first time, or for anyone that would like to renew as well. Thank you.
Yes, Marco, send that our way, and David will include in the called materials. We have another handout, Nancy Saavedra.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Ms. Nancy, I'm from the San Diego Hunger Coalition. I just wanted to extend the invitation. We're hosting 2 navigator trainings for the community partners who are interested in learning more about food assistant resources. We'll be having them next week, December 15th, and then a second one, December 17th, in case you can't make it to one of those days. I'll share the registration link as well on the chat, and maybe share the information with Brendaly. Thank you.
Thank you. We have another handout. I think it says Palm Care Pharmacy. Do we have a name?
Yes, it's Emily Edgewood from Palm Care Pharmacy. Good morning, everyone. This is a wonderful opportunity to connect with everyone. Thank you for having this. I just wanted to announce that Palm Care Pharmacy Services has been around for 6 years in El Cajon, has expanded in Border Village, as well as National City Highland Avenue for about 2 years now, and we'll be expanding some more. It is going to be your local pharmacy. You no longer have to worry about the locations. They have about 10 drivers that deliver all over San Diego County up to Escondido and Vista. And so if you want to direct anyone to the pharmacy, the owner and also an advanced pharmacist is able to work with the primary care doctors to just have their prescriptions faxed over to them, and the public no longer had to go out and stand in lines in pharmacies. The drivers actually go to them, and their medicines follow them. So thank you for having this again.
Yes, and just a reminder, everybody, we're focusing with issues and disease-specific information, also programs and services available to the communities by non-government organizations. Thank you. Any other hands available? Let me see. Going through the list, I think that we have covered all the hands up. Oh, one more with the CSA San Diego. Matthew?
Good morning. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Oh, good. All right. Thank you for having me. This is Matthew from CSA San Diego. We've been seeing an uptick in kind of landlord-tenant difficulties with COVID. We've been seeing the issuance of detainers and evictions, even though with the COVID restrictions and moratoriums in place. So there are difficult situations that are coming up in that regard. Just want to state once again, we're available as a resource, especially in Chula Vista, for individuals, whether it's a landlord or a tenant, to give us a call and kind of walk through what the moratoriums are, what they cover and what they don't cover. Just in that regard, we're here as a resource, as well as fair housing issues. So, discriminatory cases of unequal treatment, we will look into that as well. But we know it's kind of a difficult time, especially as we've reached into December, January. And as these moratoriums start to either close out, we're keeping an eye to see if those are extended or not. But certainly, if people are coming to you with issues, send them our way. We'll certainly work with them, again, whether it's a tenant or a landlord.
Thank you for that reminder. We did have an extended presentation on these services and programs in our last November call, but it's always good to keep all those items in our radar because these programs are unfortunately going to be more needed as those supplemental income programs expire coming up. So definitely the impact on housing will be still being felt in the community in the months coming up. Thank you for that reminder.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other hands raised? Let me see. We have about a minute or so before closing up the call for today. It was a lot of information, I know, and we really sincerely thank all our presenters today, all those that provided their updates, not only on the chat log, but verbally sharing the call. We welcome the opportunity to have your organization, especially the non-for-profits and government programs and services, submit their interest for our next call. If I can ask David to put the presentation back, I have the call slide for the schedule for 2021, starting on January the 12th, continues to February 9th, and so on, the second Tuesday of the month, except for July. And we want to have the opportunity to thank everybody that joined us today, took the time of their schedules. Please connect with us for any of those donations that we discussed that we still have a need. I know the education, the elementary school district had expressed interest in further assisting us. So thank you all for that. And I wish you all greatest holiday within all the limitations we can. I hope to see you well and healthy and safe for next year. And feel free to send us an email with your reactions and comments. I will be sending you a link to a survey for more information about how to expand and reshape the work of the collaborative for the next 2021. So be in the lookout for that notification. Thank you so much. Happy holidays.